Hello, everyone. Rylee Kuntz here from Black Diamond Mortgage in Whitefish, Montana. We are continuing our series of home ownership stories. And today we have our guest as Stephanie Thompson from Remax Glacier Country. And she's going to tell us a little bit about her home ownership story. So Stephanie and I were chatting a little bit this morning, and she was telling me how she got into her first home and everything. And when did you start shopping for your home?
I started shopping in March of 2020, right when COVID was hitting.
Okay. And what were you weren't doing real estate at that point in time. What were you doing?
No, I had just sold a salon that I'd owned for 6.5 years.
Okay.
And so I had money burning in my pocket waiting for an investment.
Waiting to be a down payment on a home.
Yes. And I actually used Lori Turner that I work with.
Okay.
She had been my nail client for 10 plus years at the time. Mm-hmm. And I'm so glad that I had someone that had experience in the market. Because everyone was actually thinking that the market was going to crash in March of 2020. COVID was just hitting Seattle, and they had just shut down salons in Seattle. So once we found a house we put under contract, I started getting nervous that I wasn't going to have a job for a couple of months.
Right.
And so I was like, Lori, what do we do? Do I back out? What do I do? And she thought that the market was actually going to do what it did. Mm-hmm. And I also remember talking to my brother, who is very investment savvy. And he said, no matter what, whether it crashes or whether it soars, there's no better investment than real estate. Right. So you might as well move forward and see if you can change the terms of the closing.
Right.
So I met with Lori and I said, what can we do? And she said, we can do an amendment to your contract. And instead of closing in March when you're going to be out of a job for a couple months potentially, we can see if you can close in May.
Okay.
And because she was
May of 2020.
May of 2020.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And so we got the amendment put together. They changed the purchase price. Mm-hmm. They actually lowered it almost $25,000.
Wow.
And they allowed us to choose a closing date, I believe, of May 4th. And you were saying, May the 4th be with you. The 4th was with us. And so we changed to May 4th. And then she also got them to add in a couple of upgrades that we wouldn't have had money for.
Okay. So this was a new construction.
This was new construction.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what kind of upgrades were you guys, was it the home was already built essentially, right?
Yes.
Okay.
We actually got into under contract on the house when they had just finished cabinets and countertops. So they hadn't done trim and flooring, and the heating wasn't all the way done. And so they ended up throwing in, they put a heat pump in for us. They did hardwood floors throughout when they were going to do carpet in the bedrooms. Right. And then they did sod instead of seed outside.
Okay.
So that all is probably a few $1,000s of upgrades actually. And then we were able to get the house. We had it originally under contract in the 270s and we closed at 248.
Wow.
So Lori was a rock star.
Yeah. And then what kind of down payment or what kind of loan did you guys end up using to get into this property?
We ended up using an FHA loan through Black Diamond Mortgage at the time. And we had the money to put down, so we did a 3% down payment. I think that's what
3.5% for FHA. Okay.
Yes. I always forget the numbers. That's your job. Thank God.
Don't worry, I got you.
So we put 3.5% down, and then we had our closing fees. Mm-hmm. And I can't remember what else you asked. Sorry.
Well, so being in that you were self-employed, but you sold your salon. And I know that during COVID, like self-employment, like restrictions, like with income and getting a mortgage kind of got a little wonky.
Yeah.
What did that end up looking like for you guys?
So even before COVID hit, I was self-employed. So I had sold my business. I did not sell my corporation name. Mm-hmm. And I was still doing nails. So I thought, hey, it's not a change of income. I didn't get rid of my corporation. I'm still in the same job. But they recognized it as it was a change of income. Mm-hmm. So my husband's a teacher, so he definitely does his job for the love of the job, not for the love of money. And he was making under $40,000 a year at that time. And so we ended up not being able to use my income, and we had to go off of just his. So I think we were only pre-approved up to 275-ish. Wow. And that was the payment that we could afford with his income.
So you got into your first home, brand new home, new construction.
Yes.
You got them to lower the purchase price. So your real estate agent negotiated that.
Yes.
Lowered the purchase price. You got upgrades, and you did it all on a teacher salary.
Yes. All on a teacher salary.
That's amazing.
Yep. And now I'm so glad that we did.
Yeah.
Because we almost backed out.
Okay.
I was freaking out. And now that house is worth double what we paid for
Right.
it. And even in this market, even in the changed market.
Right.
Yeah.
And was this like your dream home that you got into?
No.
No, it was
not
like
at all.
your first home.
Yeah.
Starter home.
Again, I was thinking that, hey, we can use both of our income still because I didn't have a change in a job. And we were only able to use his. So I had all these dreams and hopes in my brain, like, oh, we're going to get this side of house. And at the time, my dream house was like $400,000. Now that house is worth like $800,000.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, there should be no problem. We can afford the payment. It's great. And our dreams had to change because obviously we could only have up to 275. And now looking back, I'm so glad that we're not in a house. Like, even though it would be worth way more, I'm glad we are where we are because now our goals have changed. And don't get me wrong, I get FOMO all the time, and I see my friends buying houses that are bigger. We're in a 1,200 square foot house, and it gets a little cramped, especially when the teenager has friends over. But
and you have 3 dogs, don't you?
Yeah, 3 tiny dogs.
Even though
so they
little.
equal 1 big one, maybe. They're only 4 pounds.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a lot. Oh my gosh. But now our goals have changed, especially through COVID and everything. I think everybody rethought their goals. But now our goal is within the next year to invest in a property. And we wouldn't necessarily be able to do that if we had a higher house payment.
Right. Yeah.
So now with this house payment, we're able to actually, this is something I didn't tell you before, we try to make a double house payment every month.
Okay.
So that we're paying more on our principal every month. So yes, we're in a smaller house. It's not the house of my dreams, but I've been able to pay down almost half of it.
Yeah, you'll have it paid off quicker.
Yeah, way quicker. Yeah.
More equity than you already had by it doubling in value. And because you're in that lower price point with a lower payment, you're going to be able to invest in real estate in your future now.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Hopefully in the next year.
Yeah.
And even with the crazy market, yes, we want to invest. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. I'm so glad that you came to share your homeownership story with us.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you all for joining us, and catch us on the next one.